and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. The headlines. Mild drama at the hearing of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal sitting as the two factions of the Labour Party face off over which camp should represent the party in court. Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, urges governors-elect to stop depending on crude oil and diversify the sources of revenue in their domains. Nigerian chef Hilda Effiong-Bassi, popularly known as Hilda Bassi, breaks the world record, the longest cooking time by an individual, with a new time of 100 hours and 40 minutes. Plus, Prince Harry and wife Meghan Markle allegedly involved in a near-catastrophic car chase involving paparazzi in New York. And that's News Round AD. Once again, welcome to the program. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Let's begin with the drama that played out in the courtroom on Wednesday this week, involving the Lamidi Apapa and Julius Sabure camps of the Labour Party, who clashed at the pre-hearing session of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Mr. Apapa was confronted by youth who were in court to witness the day's proceedings in the petition filed by Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party, challenging the outcome of the presidential election held on February the 25th, 2023. Mr. Apapa had to be taken into protective custody by security operatives attached to the court.
It's been 1 week since the last sitting of the Presidential Election Petition Court. At the resumption on May 17th, the Labour Party members could not agree on who should represent the party in the courtroom. And while that was going on, the rest of the courtroom was filing out to wait for the commencement of the day's proceedings. The five-man panel of justices arrived and promptly refused to record appearances for the acting national chairman, Lamidi Apapa, as well as the national women's leader of the party, Dudu Manugu, when the petition was called today. Justice Haruna Samani noted that if two persons are making an appearance for the party, they will not be put on record. When it was time to make their submissions, all the parties involved in the suit told the court that a scheduled meeting meant to streamline their documents for expeditious hearing before the court ended in a deadlock. Counsel to the Labour Party and Peter Obi, Levi Uzuaku, informed the court that INEC only availed them 30% of the documents required from them. He adds that the party is yet to get documents with respect to Rivers State, and the Resident Electoral Commissioner says there are no EC8A forms available to be given. Counsel to INEC, Abubakar Mahmood, however, claims that representatives of the Labour Party did not show up for the meeting as agreed and also walked out of the rescheduled meeting. Mr. Mahmood adds that the documents for Rivers and Sokoto states were provided, but the Labour Party refused to pay the sum of 1.5 million naira for Sokoto state, and the form EC8A for Rivers state was not given to them. Counsel to Tinubu, Wale Olanipekun, and the counsel to the APC, Lateef Fagbemi, assured the court that they're ready to cooperate with the court.
The amount is far from being legit. So I believe I've said it all. But what is important is that now that INEC has a lead counsel, I believe that something good may come out of a chat that I'm supposed to have with him today. Because until now, if you ask me, and I say it with every degree of emphasis, that INEC sees itself as a candidate in an election that it conducted. No no other party is complaining about not getting any documents. You should ask the question, why is it so? Because they have been provided with documents, except the petitioners.
The main highlight of the day's pre-hearing was the fight for supremacy involving the Lamidi Apapa-led group and the Julius Abure camp. Lamidi Apapa had to be whisked away by security operatives when a group supposedly loyal to Abure camp confronted him, describing him as an impostor. As the court adjourns to May 19, the altercation between the two camps in Labour Party continues. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
And staying with the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, is accusing the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, of being a proxy in its petition against Bola Tinubu's qualifications for the election. INEC, through its counsel, had moved a motion and notice praying the court to strike out 32 allegations made against Mr. Tinubu by Mr. Atiku, who is challenging the declaration of Mr. Tinubu as the winner of the February 25 presidential election.
The acting national chairman of Labour Party, Lamidi Apapa, is back at the Court of Appeal, venue of the Presidential Election Petition Court, apparently to assert his authority as the chairman of the party. He, however, took a seat at the back of the courtroom and not in the area reserved for Labour Party officials. The presidential candidate of the party, Mr. Peter Obi, arrives to the field courtroom and goes around exchanging pleasantries with lawyers present.
Good morning, sir. Sister, how are you? I'm very well, thank you. Thank you.
Shortly after, the justices arrived for the day's proceedings, beginning with the petition of the People's Democratic Party. All the 7 motions filed by the respondents seeking the court to strike out the petition of Atiku were heard and reserved for ruling. The lead counsel for the PDP, Chris Uche, accuses INEC of being partial by taking up the defense of Tinubu, contrary to the provisions of the law. He insists INEC ought to be neutral. INEC has said the allegations, which form 32 paragraphs in Atiku's petition, should be removed by the courts for various reasons, including lack of jurisdiction.
We were surprised that INEC left issues relating to the conduct of the election to begin to fight a proxy war for the second respondent, that's Tinubu, because if you look at the processes filed, all they were saying was to strike out the paragraphs where we pleaded issues relating to Tinubu's qualifications. So we said, no, that is not for INEC to do. Tinubu has his own counsel. APC also has their own counsel.
Meanwhile, back in the courtroom, the panel refused to acknowledge a counsel supposedly for Lamidi Apapa, Obamadu Abuchi, who claimed he was representing the Labour Party. This was after another senior advocate, Awakalu, had made an appearance for the party. He was stopped by the panel, who insisted that the legal representation for the petitioners is just one. The justices told him that he should have advised his client properly, being a senior advocate of Nigeria. The court adjourned to May 22 for ruling on the application by the Labour Party for live coverage of proceedings.
We don't want opaqueness. We want transparency. That's why that application was filed. It's been argued, and I don't want to say that whoever is opposing it does not want transparency.
The court also adjourned to May 20 for parties to agree on the schedule of hearing in the main petition. They will agree on the number of witnesses to be called and the time allocated for them to testify and be cross-examined. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
In what seems to be a misrepresentation of the court on the judgment delivered by the Kano Federal High Court regarding the governor-elect of Abia State, Dr. Alex Oti, Justice Mohammed Nasir Yunusa has clarified that his judgment did not sack Dr. Oti as he was not joined in the suit before him. The court, however, maintains it indeed nullified the election of the candidates for Kano Labour Party that contested during the 2023 general election. The plaintiff, Mr. Ibrahim Haruna Ibrahim, had filed an application seeking the court to revoke and set aside the certificate of return issued to all LP candidates declared winner in Kano and the 35 states of the Federation, including the FCT. The respondents in the suit are the Labour Party and Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and according to the judge, the court lacks jurisdiction to make an order for the issuance of certificates of return and that they are at liberty to seek redress in the appropriate division of the court. The court declared the primary election of LP in Kano as null and void. Still in the court, a Lagos Chief Magistrate's Court sitting in the Sabo area of Yaba has ordered the remand of Afrobeat singer Seun Kuti for another 4 days in police custody over alleged assault on a police officer. The Chief Magistrate Adiola Olatubosun ordered his continued remand sequel to a motion ex parte brought by the police seeking for an order of the court to further remand the defendant at the State Criminal Investigation Department, the CSCID Yaba Lagos, to enable them carry out further investigation. The team of prosecution counsel, led by DCP Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Simon Lowe, Yetunde Kadorso, P.A. Ebunike, Umar Bello, Cyril Ajifor, Mr. Moruf Animashaun, Ayodele Oladiro, and S.A. Adebesi, Emmanuel Eze, Ekwerezie VI, and Idu Oshumbure told the court that the motion ex parte was supported by 12 paragraphs affidavit with one exhibit attached to it. Mr. Lowe also told the court that the motion and the written address to support what was exposed by one ACP Sahid Kasim, one of the investigating police officers attached to the State Criminal Investigation Department, Yaba, Lagos. The learned silk said, "It is our humble submission that from the facts, nature, and circumstance of this case, the applicant is entitled to a relief sought from his honorable court in the interest of justice, public order, and morality." Responding to the prosecution team, Mr. Femi Akiyemi, who held the brief of Seun Kuti's counsel, Mr. Adeyinka Olumide Fasuka, asked the court to stand down the matter. But the Chief Magistrate, Olatubosun, refused the request of the counsel for a stand down. She instead ordered that the defendants be further remanded in police custody for 4 days. She also ordered that a duplicate file of the case was sent to the State's Director of Public Prosecution for his advice before adjourning to May the 23rd, 2023. And away from the court, the federal government has disclosed that it is not in support of the National Assembly bill proposing to deny Nigeria-trained medical or dental practitioners from being granted full licenses until they have worked for a minimum of 5 years in Nigeria. Briefing State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the Minister of Labour, Mr. Chris Ngige, asserted that the bill in the National Assembly cannot stop anyone from getting a full license. The Labour Minister, who maintains that there are other ways to check brain drain in the country, described the bill as not workable.
Cabinet ministers converge on the council chamber for an extraordinary Federal Executive Council meeting, the second in May, presided over by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The ministers for over 7 hours mulled over 40 memos, apparently in order to conclude before month end. Among the approvals are the Employee Compensation Act universal implementation announced by the Labour Minister. The Labour Minister then expressed the government's opposition to the bill seeking 5-year compulsory service for medical doctors.
The bill in the National Assembly cannot go to stop anybody from getting a full license. That's number one. That document is, as far as I'm concerned, not workable. Ab initio. I don't support it, and I will never support it. Like I said before, it's like clean a fly with a sledgehammer. They should think of other ways. If they are trying to check brain drain, there's other ways. If a doctor has read on scholarship, you bond him. 50,000 naira a session to a medical student is nothing. When their counterparts overseas pay 70,000 pounds for a session. So I don't support that bill. So you can bond them.
Again, Dr. Ngige described as unnecessary the planned 5-day warning strike by the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors over an increment in salaries, explaining that engagements with relevant government agencies are already underway. The tertiary education sector equally gets a boost as approval is given for more universities, upscaling the total number in the country to 259.
I said that my memo is for the establishment and licensing of 37 private universities. Something of interest, one of the universities is an online university by a woman from my state, Bauchi.
The council also approved the sum of 14 billion naira for the engagement of 4 federal agencies for the training of non-graduate N-Power beneficiaries. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
When News Round returns in just a moment, Nigerian chef Hilda Effiong-Bassi makes history by setting new world record for longest cooking time by an individual. Bring the details. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The Director General of the World Trade Organization, Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is asking state governors to seek alternative revenue source by diversifying their economy and building trust such that it will encourage interstate investments that will shore up the state's revenue base. Mrs. Okonjo-Iweala was one of the guest speakers at the induction ceremony for newly elected and re-elected governors organized by the Nigeria Governors Forum in Abuja. Meanwhile, the Chief of Staff to President Buhari, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, is asking the governors to deliver on their campaign promises to run the risk of being voted out of office in 2027.
The 2023 induction for re-elected and newly elected governors attracts dignitaries from different walks of life who converge on the banquet hall of the presidential villa in Abuja. It is an occasion that brings both the outgoing, re-elected and newly elected governors together to speak on the tasks ahead of these state executives.
I'm happy to note that democracy is alive and well, vibrant and thriving in Nigeria. With elections now over, it is time for us, all of us, to deliver the promises we made during the campaign. Any public officer who fails to either meet up with the expectations of the people or deliver on his campaign promises will be voted out in the next election.
Unemployment, poverty, and insecurity are difficult tasks incumbent administrations are expected to face in their respective states. Building strong, viable institutions in the polity will help in tackling unemployment, reducing poverty, and ensuring the provision of security of lives and property. This is a worthy legacy to be bequeathed to our children and generations to come.
Some of the guest speakers at the event also underscore the importance of nation building through strong partnerships and economic diversification.
We need to start preparing now for a time when our oil and gas may no longer serve us as the main sources of revenue. States with a heavy dependence on FAC allocations will be particularly hit. It is important that you, governors, start now to diversify your revenue sources. Honorable governors, let us be candid. Trust in Nigeria has always been fragile, but following the election, a lot of trust has been broken. Excellencies, you have a lot of healing to do.
Second, you will need trusted partnerships. Partnerships with central government, with the private sector, with civil society, academia, and with international financial institutions, and indeed with the United Nations, of which you are a big part.
The induction exercise is the first formal meeting of the newly elected, re-elected and outgoing governors from the 36 states of the Federation. It is expected that the knowledge shared at this meeting will have a significant impact on governance in their respective states.
And just some great news for the country. In an attempt to break the Guinness World Record for the longest cooking time by an individual, Nigerian chef Hilda Effiong Bassi, popularly known as Hilda Bassi, has set a new record of 100 hours and 40 minutes. Bassi, who is no stranger to breaking records, as she won the maiden edition of the Jollof Face-Off competition held back in August 2021, sets aside the 2019 record of Indian chef Lata Tondon, who completed the task in 87 hours 45 minutes. She's allowed one assistant at a time and can take a 5-minute break each hour, or an equivalent over several hours.
Dreams, they say, do come true, and today it did once more for 27-year-old chef Hilda Bassi. Her many years' ambition of writing a name in the sands of time becomes a reality as she breaks the Guinness World Record for longest cooking by an individual. Today is the 4th day and the atmosphere is carnival-like, with people from all walks of life turning up to cheer Hilda to victory. Celebrities including Akpororo, Nancy Sime, Ara, and Yolua, amongst others, joined a growing list of celebrities who've been turning up to show support. In an earlier statement posted on her social media page, Hilda described her motivation as desire to tell positive stories about Africa with food, and she has, with her cooking, cutting, and many other kitchen chores. At the 45th minute of the 87th hour, she breaks a standing record held since 2019 by an Indian chef, Lata Tondon. But it isn't enough. She's going ahead to extend the lead amid cheering from her growing fans. Her quest to make history has generated so much buzz among Nigerians who are still rallying support for her, both on social media and at the venue of the Cookathon. She's been receiving commendation messages from important personalities, including President Muhammadu Buhari, the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, other 2023 presidential candidates, including Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, and the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who visited in person. The exercise has provided different moments, and even in the face of obvious exhaustion, she pushed on to a desired moment of victory at our 140 minutes. Being a Guinness World Record holder does not have any monetary benefits, but has some other benefits such as global recognition, including the Guinness World Record certificate, which is accepted around the world.
And finally, on News Round today, a monarchy expert has said that claims by Britain's Prince Harry and his wife Meghan that they were involved in a near-catastrophic car chase with photographers highlight the real battle between the royals and the media. Dr. Alice Hunt, associate professor of the University of Southampton, said the incident was very serious, serious enough for the royal couple to make a claim. The prince has long spoken about his anger at press intrusion, which he blames for the death of his mother, Princess Diana, who was killed when her limousine crashed as it sped away from chasing paparazzi in Paris in 1997. And that's News Round for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and stay safe.